A routine day took a terrible turn when a custody exchange ended with an Austin Peay State University student dead. She was young, ambitious, and had her whole life ahead of her. A loving mother, a promising student, a budding entrepreneur. But on February 20, 2023, her life was stolen in a hail of gunfire, right outside the home of her child's paternal grandparents. The shooting happened in Madison County, about 2 hours from the Austin Peay campus in Clarksville. She had come to pick up her son. She never made it back home. This is the story of Tyeasha Starks, a 22-year-old mother, college student, and entrepreneur. She had dreams of becoming a dentist and building a future for her son. But those dreams ended in a matter of seconds. And the most chilling part? No one has been arrested. Now, her family says justice must be served. The shooter is known. The case is not a mystery. And yet, justice has not been served. Why? What really happened to Tyeasha Starks? And why does her killer still walk free? Before we continue with this chilling story, if you have not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. And do not forget to turn on the notification bell icon. Thank you. Now, let's continue with the story. Tyeasha Starks was born to dream big. Her infectious smile, cleansing heart, and humble spirit influenced everyone around her. Tyeasha took pride in being a positive role model in her community. She loved singing, cheering, dancing, and being amongst friends and family. Tyeasha was a 2018 honors graduate of Haywood High School. During her years at Haywood, she was a basketball cheerleader for the Haywood Tomcats and a member of several other extracurricular activities: Beta Club, Spanish Club, softball, and exclusive dance team. All of these activities contributed to the bonds and relationships that she developed with her peers. After graduating, she attended Austin Peay State University, where she majored in biology to pursue her dream of becoming a dentist, a challenging field, one that required intense focus and dedication. She was very close to obtaining her biology degree. And if that wasn't enough, she was also a businesswoman. While attending college, she established her own business. She was already the owner of Tyeasha Extensions, a growing business she had built from the ground up. She sold high-quality hair extensions and beauty products, pouring hours into marketing, customer service, and sales. She didn't just want to work for someone else. She wanted to be her own boss. She also worked as a pharmacy tech at Walgreens, gaining hands-on experience in the medical field while also helping to support herself and her son, Tyeasha. And despite everything she had on her plate, college, work, a growing business, her biggest role of all was being a mother. She was wonderful mother of her 1-year-old son, Tyeasha Curry, with whom she leaves an abundance of loving memories. Her son was the center of her world. From the moment he was born, everything she did was for him. Every late-night study session, every long shift at work, every sale from her business, it was all to give him a better life. She was determined to be the best mother she could be while also building a future. And somehow, she balanced it all. She studied hard. She worked tirelessly. She made time for her son. And through it all, she kept smiling, kept pushing forward, kept believing that her hard work would pay off. She had so much to live for. But in an instant, it was all stolen from her. At just 22 years old, Tyeasha Starks had already accomplished so much. A college student, a business owner, a devoted mother. But behind the success, behind the ambition, there was a battle. A battle that had been building long before that fatal day. It was a battle over custody. Tyeasha's son, Tyeasha, was her pride and joy. She loved him more than anything in the world. But co-parenting with his father, Bryce Curry, wasn't always easy. At first, things seemed civil. They had once been in a relationship, but like many young couples, things didn't work out. And while their romantic relationship had ended, their connection through Tyeasha remained. They both wanted to be in his life. But wanting to be in his life and doing what was best for him weren't always the same thing. As time went on, tension started to rise. Arguments over custody. Disagreements over visitation. Disputes about who had the right to make decisions for their son. And then, the real conflict began. She worked hard for her son. She was building a future for him. But not everyone saw it that way. As the custody battle escalated, so did the fear. Tyeasha confided in close friends and family. She was worried. That day, Tyeasha went to pick up her son from his paternal grandparents' home. But what should have been a simple custody exchange would soon become a day that would change everything, and cost her life. She never made it out alive. Tyeasha Starks and Bryce Curry, Tyeasha's son's father, had an agreement that he, the father, would watch over their son, Tyeasha Curry, 3 days out of the week, Monday through Wednesday, while she would watch over him the remaining days of the week. At the time, Tyeasha was a college student at Austin Peay State University, majoring in biology. Tyeasha Starks was close to her graduation, so she had classes Monday through Friday. On Monday morning, February 20th, Tyeasha dropped Tyeasha off with his father, Bryce, before she headed to class. When Tyeasha arrived at school, she received a phone call from Bryce saying she would need to find someone to keep their son that following day, which would have been that Tuesday because he had class. They started arguing over the phone after she told him that she needed to figure something out. Bryce's mother, Tyeasha Curry, hearing the argument between both, she took the phone from her son, Bryce, and started calling her some derogatory names, and the argument continued. 2 hours away, after class, Tyeasha and 2 of her friends headed to Bryce's home, where he lived with his mother, Tyeasha Curry, and father, Tyeasha Curry. When they arrived, Nadia and Ariana stayed in the car, but Nadia gave Tyeasha a taser just in case Bryce tried to hurt her, because he had been acting stupid over the phone all day. She put the taser in her pocket. She went and knocked on the front door, expecting nothing more than the usual exchange. She was used to the back and forth with her son's father. They had been through this process before. But she never imagined that this time would be different. Tyeasha Curry, Bryce's dad, went to the door after waiting for a long time, and Tyeasha stepped off the porch into the yard. Tyeasha said something derogatory to Tyeasha, and they started arguing. She told Tyeasha, "I just came over here to get my son." At this time, the confrontation began. Shouting, arguments that had been simmering for months boiled over. The words were sharp, accusatory. There was no calm exchange this time. No peaceful handoff. This time, emotions were running high, and something had snapped. Witnesses say it all happened fast, too fast to react. A heated argument escalated, and within seconds, everything changed. Then, gunfire. Bang. 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 The sound of bullets tearing through the air. Everyone around was screaming, and friends rushed out to call the police. Tyeasha was hit, shot multiple times. Once in the chest, once in the abdomen, and the final shot, to her arm. She crumpled to the ground, her body already weakening from the blood loss. But in that moment, she did the unthinkable. She tried to escape. Struggling to breathe, to stay conscious, Tyeasha managed to pull herself into her car. Her vision blurred. The pain was unbearable, but her instincts took over. She slammed the car into drive and sped off, fleeing from the scene, desperate to get away, desperate to survive. But the damage had been done. As she drove, she bled out. Each breath was harder than the last. Her vision faded as the pain worsened. Her body was betraying her, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't escape the inevitable. Tyeasha didn't make it far. She drove off the road into a nearby neighbor's yard. By the time emergency responders arrived, it was too late. About 30 minutes later, the medical examiner confirmed her death. Her body was transferred to Nashville for an autopsy. Tyeasha Starks, a young mother, an aspiring dentist, an entrepreneur, was gone. She never made it to the hospital. She never saw her son again. She had fought so hard, so desperately, but in the end, the fight was over. And as the cold Tennessee air settled over the scene, the question lingered in the minds of all who witnessed the tragedy: why? What had led to that deadly confrontation? What had pushed the events of that day over the edge? And who would be held accountable for her death? The gunfire had silenced her life, but it also sparked something else, a fight for justice that would not be easily forgotten. When the authorities arrived, there was a palpable sense of confusion and frustration from Tyeasha's family. Madison County Sheriff's deputies responded to the scene, but initial reports from witnesses claimed the police were slow to act. No arrests were made at the time of the shooting. The shooter, who was known to be Tyeasha's son's grandfather, was not immediately apprehended. Instead, he was reportedly allowed to leave the scene without being detained. Police started an investigation, collecting statements from witnesses and family members. But even as they pieced together the timeline of events, it was clear that something was amiss. The lack of immediate action left Tyeasha's family feeling as though justice was being delayed before they even had a chance to seek it. Madison County Sheriff's Office. The disturbance escalated and witnesses corroborated that Ms. Starks arrived with a stun gun and was actively arching the device when she was shot. All the information had been turned over to the district attorney's office, and any comment would have to come from them. According to Jody Pickens, the Madison County District Attorney, no decision has been made on charge. The police's response, or lack thereof, left them bewildered. Was the case not being taken seriously? Was there a lack of urgency? Tyeasha's family members became increasingly vocal about their concerns, demanding that the case be handled with the seriousness it deserved. The uncertainty surrounding the investigation only compounded their grief. This prompted Starks' family to organize protest. In the days following the shooting, Tyeasha's family, devastated by their loss, quickly became frustrated with the lack of progress in the case. Tyeasha's mother, Harris, struggled to understand how the shooter could still be walking free while her daughter's life was cut short. The silence from authorities made her feel as though Tyeasha's death was being treated as less important. Determined not to let her daughter's life be forgotten, and other family members began to speak out. They gathered outside the Madison County Sheriff's Office, demanding answers, demanding action. They held protests, calling for justice for Tyeasha, and insisted that no stone be left unturned in the investigation. The protest was just to get awareness and to get my daughter's story out and to just, get justice for my daughter, because a lot of people I feel like are trying to get my daughter's story. I'm going to do whatever I have to do get her story out there and to get justice, Tyeasha Mothers Harris explained.
Family and supporters gathered in the Hub City today looking for answers in connection with a woman who was fatally shot last month. The family of Tyeasha Starks held a protest outside the district attorney's office today, 27 days after her death. Starks was shot on Harpeth Drive, February 20th. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, the family is calling for justice, saying they want answers, and they've not received any information in the case, they say. The family is also concerned about the care and safety of Starks' one-year-old son.
The only thing we had left was her son, and we have not seen him. That's not right. That's not right. That's trauma to my grandson.
Starks' family asked for everyone to keep them in their prayers and say they won't stop until they get justice.
But despite their efforts, frustration continued to build. Days turned into weeks, and still, there was no arrest, no closure. Every unanswered question felt like another wound to an already grieving family. They weren't just fighting for justice for Tyeasha, they were fighting to hold the system accountable. They knew it wouldn't be easy. They knew that fighting for justice wouldn't bring Tyeasha back. But they couldn't, and wouldn't, let her story be swept under the rug. The fight for answers was just beginning, and the Tyeasha family was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. Harris created a petition calling for justice in the case. That petition has received 4,000 signatures. I'm my daughter's voice now. My daughter is not able to speak for herself, so I have to be strong and speak for my daughter and for my grandson, Harris said. They are prepared to pursuing possible legal charges to ensure that justice is served for their daughter. The family were worried about Tyeasha Starks' one-year-old son. They do not know where the baby is now. The family says they have not been given any information from the sheriff's office. And they won't tell us anything about the baby. That's our number one concern right now, having a chance to have the baby home and safe. And we feel like that he is in danger. Because as far as we know, he killed the mom. So who is to say he won't harm her child, said Sharon Chapman, the aunt of Tyeasha Starks. The family wants answers and information on what happened that night. They say they will not stop until they get answers. And we are gonna fight for her. It's not over by a long shot. We won't stop until we get justice. Anybody that has information, we want them to come forward. Just put themselves in our shoes. They would want somebody to come and tell them what happened to their daughter, their son, no matter who it is. And so we want justice, Chapman said. In the days, weeks, and months that followed, Her family's resolve only grew stronger. Tyeasha's mother, her closest family, and her supporters rallied together to keep her story alive. They refused to be silenced. They knew they had to keep pushing for justice, not just for themselves, but for Tyeasha's son Tansitan, who was left behind. Months passed, and still, no one had been arrested. Tyeasha's family was left to wonder if the justice system would fail them. They questioned whether the lack of progress was a reflection of the case's seriousness or if someone somewhere was protecting the person responsible. But despite the frustrating delays, her family refused to back down. The Starks family kept pushing for an arrest, kept fighting for answers. They launched petitions calling for action, used social media to bring attention to the case, and spoke at public rallies to remind the world that Tyeasha's story wasn't over. They were tired of waiting, but they weren't ready to give up. With every petition signed, with every news report aired, their voices grew louder, demanding that authorities do more. As of now, the case remains unresolved, and the person responsible for taking Tyeasha's life is still free. But her family's fight continues. Is there hope for an arrest? Her family remains determined that one way or another, they will get justice. Tyeasha's life may have been taken, but her legacy, her fight for her son, her dreams and her future, continues through the persistence of those who loved her most. The battle is far from over, and for Tyeasha's family, there is no end in sight until they have the answers they deserve. They will not stop. They will not rest. The fight for justice is far from finished. Tyeasha Starks had so much ahead of her. She was more than just a mother, more than just a student. She was a woman with dreams, with ambition, with a future she was ready to build. But in a moment of senseless violence, all of that was taken away. And now, months later, her family is left without answers, without justice. Does Tyeasha Starks deserve justice? Does her son Tansitan deserve to grow up knowing who took his mother's life? Will the killer ever be held accountable? These are the questions that haunt Tyeasha's family, and they should haunt all of us. We cannot ignore stories like Tyeasha's. We cannot let her death be swept under the rug. Her family deserves justice. They deserve answers. And we, as a society, owe it to her memory to demand the truth. If you believe Tyeasha Starks deserves justice, if you believe no one should walk free after taking an innocent life, then take a stand. Like this video, share it, and comment below to help spread awareness. We can still fight for Tyeasha's memory. Together, we can ensure that her story is never forgotten, and that those responsible are held accountable. Thank you for watching. If you like stories like this, support our channel by subscribing and turning on the notification bell icon so that you'll be notified whenever we release new videos like this.